All righty then. Well, good morning, everyone. This is John Craig, and I am having some fun here with the buttons, and I got it right now. So, good morning, and you are listening to Let Us Reason Together. It's Monday morning. I am the second day of the week host for Let Us Reason Together, and today is Monday, the 6th of January in the year 2020 on the Gregorian calendar. It is the 9th day of the 10th month. And some say it's the month of Tevet, so it's the Hebrew year 5780. And this is where we are based off of Isaiah 118. Come now and let us reason together, says Yahweh, though your sins are as scarlet, they will be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they will be like wool. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to sit down today. We're going to reason out some current events, cultural shifts, and of course this week's Torah portion. We can either push back or push through. Nevertheless, if iron does not sharpen iron, sparks will never fly, let alone ever get a fire going. So without a little heat and a good midrash, how will our hearts ever get soft and moldable enough to be transformed in the way that the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, wants us to be, and maybe have a little fun along the way? And I want to bring in right now my illustrious leader of the Messianic Lamb Radio, Mr. Mark David Smith. How are you doing today, Mark?
Hello, Craig. Thank you for inviting me to your show, thank you, sir.
Your name, or today, I'm sorry, I messed up on your name. Today, your name is Cram. So how does that?
It's always Cram.
So anyway, it's always Cram?
Always. Yeah, always Cram.
Oh, so if you're wondering what that is,
it's kind of like Share.
Yeah, this is Mark's new show. Want to just give you
well, welcome everybody to the Compass of Cram. I'm so glad that you could join us today.
Wednesdays.
Oh, it's on Wednesday. This is Monday.
Yeah, this is Monday. But
this is not the show.
This is not the show.
Wrong intro.
I did. Oh. That's why I use Let Us Reason Together intro, because this is what today's show is.
Oh, this is Monday. Well, there was a woman sitting next to you, and then she left, and it just confused me. I just have no idea what all this is.
I get confused about
that.
Where are we at? She'll be back. She'll be back shortly. But also joining us from the great, I always say the great white north, because I always think of Canada in the wintertime as white, but I don't know. But we've got Daryl Weinberg. Good morning, Rabbi. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you.
So it is
dark in here. I need to put on a light. My goodness.
Is it the great white north?
Hey, there was something just ran through your house.
Yeah, I know. We got critters all over the place here.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So is it? Answer. I gotta get an answer to this question. Is it the Great White North up there in the Niagara Falls area?
Hey,
it's whitish.
Whitish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beauty.
We have a smattering of snow. It's not knee deep to the hoopla or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Knee deep to the hoopla. Okay. All right. That's good.
You ever feel like you just completely lost control?
I do, but I also need to bring in my better half here.
Finally.
You got to pull her in. There she is.
What an entrance. She just got a scoot off at the first, and it's like, what's this big entrance? Why don't we put on the da 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 da?
We used to do that kind of stuff, Mark. Remember, we gave people their own intros on our other show.
Oh, that's right, we did. So why don't we do it? We'll do it only for Sandy, though. Daryl and I don't need it.
I haven't. I can think of intros for you boys, you men.
I think we should start calling her Fanfare Sandy.
Fanfare Sandy. Da, 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 da. Okay. Hey, so, all right. Since we're kind of being a little weird and quirky right now, I have some weird and quirky shower thoughts for today.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm changing things up a little bit. It's not just I'm changing up. We went for a long time doing the things we did. I'm changing it up now.
Was
So
I
weird.
supposed to
Do you
take a
have shower
shower?
thoughts? I mean, do you have thoughts that hit your brain like, well, that was weird?
No, I pray when I'm in the shower.
You know, things hit me in the brain, but these are not mine. I'm going to say it up front. These are not mine. But see, the shower isn't just a place to sing or sometimes, but it is a great place to pray. I'll tell you that. But separated from our cell phones, I'm giving you a heading here. Standing under running water often allows people's minds to run free. Okay. So here are some things that pop up in people's heads while in the shower, and they've actually been published. So bear with me. Manuals for TVs are regarded as useless, but in 5,000 years, they are as valuable as the Rosetta Stone. It contains the same text in over 20 different languages and alphabets. That's a shower thought for that. How about this one?
That one.
Yeah. How about this one? That fork at a restaurant has been in 1,000 mouths.
Other mouths. Ugh.
And it's only been washed 800 times.
You never know. You never know. Just wipe it off and put it back on the table. All right.
Ugh.
How about this one? The real winner in the every child gets a trophy is the trophy making company. Yeah.
They make like 98% of the actual cost of the trophy, probably.
Yeah. Okay, here's something else. Sneezing is really weird. Your nose briefly transforms into a cannon that launches snot at the speed of a sports car. Then you go out about your business as if you hadn't just had your face weaponized.
Now, are these are thoughts that while we're thinking in the shower?
Yes, thoughts that we think.
What do you think of? What do you think of, Mark, when you're taking a shower?
Well, I'm like you. I pray, but mostly I pray that I just don't go down the drain when everything's rinsing.
you get out of the shower.
I'm melting.
When I'm in the shower, I just
there's cells on my body that when you wash, you kind of wash the cells. So in fact, when you're looking down, a lot of you is washing down that drain because they're your cells that you scrub off of your body, and there they go. So I'm like, oh, there I go. I'm going down the. Doesn't everybody?
I'd be like, hallelujah, I'm going to have soft skin.
Oh, you don't care if your cells go down the drain then. Okay.
See, everybody has shower thoughts.
What about Daryl's?
It's kind of like Mark has repetitive dreams, like, repetitive dreams. Like, I just had that dream. Well, he's in the shower, and every time he's thinking about his cells going down.
Wow.
Yeah, think about
all I
that.
can say is I pray in the spirit and I pray in my language, and I declare and decree and pray and that's the place. That's one of the places. So,
Daryl, do you have shower thoughts?
Yeah, I'm usually trying to get the cat out of the shower.
Yeah.
Not going there. No.
Yeah. Okay, one last shower thought before we move on. All right, y'all brace yourselves. Flat earthers shouldn't celebrate New Year's. Okay.
They should.
Flat earthers?
Flat earthers should not celebrate New Year's.
Because they don't believe about the...
Yeah.
I don't get the joke.
They don't believe that we rotate anyway.
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be offensive to the flat earthers out there. I'm just saying, it's a shower thought. It's a shower thought. Okay. All right. How about
that's actually good, because you know what? With a lot of these Facebook groups and stuff like that, there's a lot of flat earthers on it. So I need to ask that question. So do you celebrate New Year's?
That's right. There you go. I like that.
Most of them, like me, probably won't get it. So yeah. Anyway, but it's still. Now that I get it, I think, oh, pretty cool.
All right. So Mark, just go back and watch the archive and think about it. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on.
In the shower.
In the shower. Okay.
I'll watch the archive in the shower.
Yeah. There you go. All right. How about the verse of the day? Verse of the day is John 13:16, and I use the Sefer edition, and this one is Amen, Amen. I say unto you, this is from the Brit Hadashah, by the way. Amen, amen, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his master, neither is he that is sent greater than he that sent him.
That's from the portion today.
Yeah.
That's you're already preaching are we starting my segment of the show?
No, I'm just throwing it in there.
You could though. You could turn it around.
Yeah.
No. What,
okay.
Sandy, no, Sandy's always trying to mess
me up.
She's trying to mess me. She's trying to get me riled up.
All right. So
it might be a precursor to what might happen on Wednesday.
Might be. What happens Wednesday, by the way?
Compass cram.
Pumpus. Oh, the Pompous Cram.
No, I did not say that.
The Pompous Cram. Oh,
I did not say that.
All right. So, hey, I got some headlines everybody need to know about. All right. We had another co-host there for a second. Okay. How about, I got some weird news out there.
You have 2 minutes.
Yeah. I got a couple weird news in the headlines and then some other quick headlines. I got 2 minutes. All right. To get this through. Here's this weird news. As of January 1st, woman tried to pass off dog urine as her own during a drug test. According to the police. Yep. Investigator says suspect admitted that she tried to use the dog urine as her own sample. That was over in Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky woman. You know what happened? She got arrested. How about this one? Here's another one. Retiring English teacher fined for repeated park pooping. Yeah, that was from January the 2nd. This English teacher in Wisconsin said, I'm not going to give his name, but it says that he let his thrill-seeking, self-indulgent pride and ego both get the best of me, he said. A man was cited for regularly defecating in a public park over a period of 2 years. So, yeah, Wisconsin.
May I respond to that?
Yeah.
I'd like to know what's going through Daryl's mind right now.
It's like
that's my response to that.
It's totally
in the past minute and a half, Daryl. What were the thoughts going through your head?
You really don't want to know.
Okay. All right. Here's a couple other headlines that are out there. Torrington police search for Jesus. That was a headline in the Hartford Courant. How about this? Suspected beer thief leaves liquid trail. Here's another one. Stylish but illegal monkey found roaming Toronto IKEA.
There's lots of monkeys at the Toronto IKEA. Believe me, I've been there.
How about this one? This is from Provo, Utah, from the Daily Herald over there. Self-proclaimed invisible man, no show at court hearing.
Self-proclaimed invisible man. What was that show that, oh my gosh, it was a great show. Everybody on it was totally whacked. And one of the main characters truly believed that all he had to do was snap his fingers and he was invisible. And I mean, he literally...
WKRP?
What was it?
Is that WKRP?
No, it wasn't WK. It was the same time period though, and it was about a family. And this guy was, I don't know what his character, but he could be anywhere, and he truly believed it. And I mean, he would be at a party and he would just snap his fingers and he would just go and stand right there and listen to people, you know, and it was hilarious.
So.
Well, here's another headline.
So
was
that's
it so?
what it was. I knew I loved you for some reason, Daryl. You're great, man. So that's what it was. All right.
Okay.
Great. Look it up, man.
How about this next headline? Sun is too round, says scientists. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Somebody gonna take some sandpaper up there and
that was from take an edge off. How about and that was from the Independent. And this is about Red Cross in search of donors with a low blood supply.
A low blood supply.
Yeah. Red Cross in search of donors with low blood supply. And this one is very interesting from masslive.com. It says, police charge one armed man with unarmed robbery.
One armed man with unarmed robbery.
Okay, I thought it was funny.
How about this next one? I'm going to leave it with this one before we move on. Police arrest naked man with concealed weapon.
No, you need to say it like this. Police arrest naked man with concealed weapon.
Where did he put that weapon? I'm just wondering.
I'll be thinking about that for the rest of the day. And it was a man, right? It was a man, right? Okay.
Yeah, it could have been significantly hairy, and he maybe put it under, like, maybe a big beard and
whatever.
Concealed.
And how big was the gun? Did they say how big the gun was?
No.
Okay. No. Yeah, I mean, it was concealed.
That was from MSNBC.com, by the way. Yeah, it's a real headline.
See, I could conceal a weapon back there. Sandy could conceal a weapon, you know.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
so it's not that they would notice that I was naked when I walked in or whatever, you know, and it was, you know, they wouldn't be looking for a gun. You know, that would be the whole thing. You started it, dude. You started it.
I did. Right. I did. I had some others, but I had to, there was some censoring I had to do. I might bring one back next week. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. That's what I had today for our intro coming in. It's time for us to jump into our next segment of the day, which is the Torah portion. And Daryl, you've got the floor on that.
I have got the floor. Oh boy.
Yeah. How do you go from there, right?
I'm still thinking about concealed weapons.
Just make that a part of the Torah portion, brother.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
What would Israel say about this?
Yeah. Well, Israel said a lot of things in this Torah portion. He had two main tasks that he had to do. Number one, he had to bless Joseph's children. And very much like in God's way of doing things, he chooses Ephraim over Manasseh and says that there is both will be blessed, but Ephraim will be the greater, even though he's the younger. And that happened a fair bit during in Scripture, at least during the patriarchs anyway, because the firstborn was the most important child in the family, because it's especially the male, because he's the one that carried on the family lineage, and he was always the recipient of the double blessing. And in this case, you know, Joseph, having been restored to his father, and he only had two children, and Jacob purposely switches his hands and chooses Manasseh or Ephraim first, and it got Joseph pretty perturbed. I mean, he tried to actually force his father's hands back, but Jacob said, no, this is what God's going to do. And it always reminds us of the sovereignty of God and how he chooses whom he's going to choose. And we can't, just because of tradition, we can't just because of, you know, this is the way we've always done it, this is our custom, this is our practice, know who God is going to choose for what. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, it says, God chooses the foolish things of this world to put to shame the wise. And, you know, obviously we don't want to label Ephraim as being foolish, but it would be foolish to choose the younger child, because that's not the way things are done. And you got to kind of think about how that would go. I mean, we look at what happened with Esau and Jacob, and that even though Jacob was the younger child, only by a couple of minutes, but Esau was the one with the inheritance, and yet Jacob spent, it looks like, the first part of his life figuring out how he was going to get the right of blessing, because when Esau comes to him and says he's hungry, the first thing that Jacob says to him is, well, give me your birthright. So obviously that's not something that had just kind of popped into his head. This had been something that he had been thinking about. And did his mother tell him about the promise that God made her when the kids were in the womb? We don't know. But Jacob spent a lot of time obviously thinking about the birthright and how he was going to get it from his brother. So he must have been aware of what God had promised, and yet he wasn't willing to wait until God delivered it to him. So for Jacob now, who schemed to take the birthright from his brother, even though it was promised to him, he now goes and does the same thing to Joseph's children and says that Ephraim is going to be the greater of the two, and he's going to receive the blessing. And it's the same thing also with, there are many other situations like that within Scripture too, but the blessing from the Father is always so important in Scripture, and I think we've kind of lost that today. There isn't much credence that's put into it. And then you go into Genesis chapter 49 when he delivers the blessings, and I kind of look at Jacob blessing his children at the end as his revenge, because his kids put him through a lot of grief. Oh my goodness, if you think about what his children did to him, they were rebellious. They obviously didn't walk according to Torah. Reuben, of course, being the firstborn, goes and actually sleeps with one of his father's concubines, and so that's why he gets the birthright taken away from him from amongst all of his children. But it is Jacob. He does a little payback. He goes after Simeon and Levi and tells them that they're not even going to have an inheritance in the land, and turned out to be true. Levi didn't have inheritance of land. The Levites ended up having to be partitioned off amongst the others. Now, is because they ended up getting the priesthood because of their faithfulness at the golden calf incident. But Simeon also ends up just living in Judah's territory. So there's a bit of retribution. So you got to be careful what you do to your dad. And even though he doesn't say anything, and Jacob, by all accounts, seemed to be very non-confrontational. He was more of a schemer and a plotter. But man, oh man, the retribution came back to those who had done him wrong. So we got to be careful about those who we treat in authority. And you could, of course, tie this into Hebrews 13:17, which says that we need to submit to our authorities and those who watch over us. And if we make their lives difficult, it won't go well for us. And unfortunately, I've had to use that verse many times with congregants. It's like, don't give me a hard time on this. It's like, I'm making the best decisions that I can. And it's not for you to sit there and undermine me every step of the way. So the end of Genesis, which is the historical, really, it's the main historical book within Scripture, and it kind of lays the foundation for everything that we know about who we are as children of God and everything else. There are so many things that that are for us to really kind of delve into and mine for these nuggets. And we see the end of Genesis that launches us into the whole Exodus thing and the establishment of the nation of Israel. But there's some good little pieces, tidbits within this parsha. So there you go.
All right. Well, thanks, Daryl, for bringing that. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Torah portion?
It was great. It was really good because having respect for our elders, first of all, is a commandment of the New Testament, but is implied in the Old Testament and Old Testament. My gosh, I haven't said those words in a long time. But respect for our elders, respect for not only our parents, but those that are in authority, those that are our teachers. I think a lot of times, if we haven't chosen a teacher or we haven't chosen somebody that is in actual authority over us, we choose not to be respectful. I think that's a big problem. And of course, today being a little bit different than the way it was in Jacob and Joseph's time, a little bit different. I think it's a lot different today, especially when it comes to having respect for your elders. Having respect for parents, we see a drastic change. I think even in religious communities, even in the Messianic lifestyle, Christian, Jewish, not so much, I think, but we see a tremendous loss of respect and the way somebody treats not only parents or people in authority, in private and in public. I think it makes up about half of all of John's news stories is, little tidbits at the beginning of the show is people not having respect for somebody else, especially in authority. And I don't know. I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised, I was raised to have respect for anybody in authority, whether or not I had put not put them there, but recognize that or not, you still, especially in public, would have respect for somebody. So I get it in that Jacob having a little retribution there. Still, it's I get it. Interesting way to look at it. I don't think I'd looked at it that way, but sure, I'm with you.
Yeah, right. I was just thinking about what you're saying there, Mark, about the respect issue. And one of the elements is that if people respected, if actually people, followed the Torah, lived that Messianic lifestyle, one of the things that might be is that we might not have headlines.
That's what I was saying. Maybe your headlines, your first part of your show would go 5 minutes instead of 15.
I know, and I'm telling you, there's such an abundance of material. It's overwhelming to see, and that's just on a weekly basis or a daily basis.
And even comedians have made their entire career and millions of dollars off of. I get no respect,
right? Yeah, Sandi.
Well, I look at, first off, I look at Jacob's life not quite as. I think Jacob's life, and this isn't what it's about, but Jacob has been given the world, and some rabbis and things have demonized him where he shouldn't be demonized, because when you break down words and things, there's a lot more revealed. But his sons, what we see in the sons and the children of Israel is mishandling of seed, the very same thing that we do. But there's a blessing that when he gave the sons the blessing that they would grow into a multitude. When you break that word down, dara, it means to increase, to cover, to be dark. It has the sense of grow. So it's almost like it is pointing towards their ability to grow in the darkness, their ability even possibly to go through on the other side, because what's happening is there's preparation there. The whole story is about the redemption of the children of Israel that's about to follow throughout Egypt, and the things that they go through to refine them and to make them come to the place where they'll stop mishandling the seed. Although, do we ever stop mishandling the seed? I'm not so sure. It's a process. And So I think that, but also gives us hope that even in darkness, even when things are at the worst place, even when we've made a mess of our lives and we're getting our whatever we deserve, that we can grow and that God has mercy. He gives us mercy. And despite what we deserve, he gives us life. And despite where we mess up, he can turn things around and redeem us. And to me, that's also what we see. Of course, Yah uses the foolish things to confound the wise. And we see that throughout the Torah portions, each and every one. And we see that in the lives of Yaakov. We see that in the lives of the sons. We see that here. And what the world may call a curse, Yah uses for his glory. So,
it's interesting how the word never pulls any punches. It tells it like it is. And we see a whole picture of what's going on. But when we can kind of put all these points together, going back to how Daryl started and the crossing of the arms and the blessing of Manasseh and Ephraim, where he said in verse 16 of chapter 48 in Genesis, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. And it goes on. But that word angel is melech, which means messenger. Well, there's scripturally speaking, angels don't redeem, but who is our redeemer? It's just kind of this thought that every one of these lives, every one of the 12 sons, though they messed up and we see their lives put out in front of us, we see how Jacob, had his good times, bad. Yeah. I mean, we know our own lives, and yet it is this messenger of God who is Yeshua the Messiah, who is the one who Jacob encountered, is the very one that redeems their lives. And there's that testimony of the 12 patriarchs that's out there. And you can see these now, whether it's true or not, it was just how it summarizes these guys' lives, but they come around saying, I did these things, but then my heart was saw basically the foolishness of my youth, and don't go where I went. Follow the paths of following the word. Yeah, Sandy.
I do want to clarify something. When I said the rabbis, I was meaning the rabbis of old. We're talking. I'm not talking about. I was talking anyway. So please, nobody. I'm talking about the sages of the time, and not all. But anyway, so please don't misunderstand what I was saying. Anyway, I thought about that for a minute. I went, I said that wrong.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. So. Daryl, any last thoughts?
Well, I've always got thoughts. I just don't know if I should be sharing them or whether they're appropriate or whether everybody cares or not.
Well, shower thoughts. Okay.
We have respect for you, Daryl.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We have invited you in, and we have respect. So
and you still don't know what you've done.
Don't really care.
There you go. No, yeah, I mean, obviously, what Sandy is saying is that we can't just denigrate Jacob, because obviously he's one of the patriarchs and he was a good man. But I find that as I continue my walk with the Lord, that I realize how difficult it is to be kadosh with him. I realize how difficult it is, even though our heart was right. And, Jacob, after all those years, God had changed his heart. He went from scheming and negotiating with him to say, well, if you do this, you do that, you do this, then you'll be my God. And, you take care of me. And then, maybe I'll give you a passing thought, to when he has the encounter with Esau 21 years later, is just like, I don't deserve this, and I am completely incapable. So his heart had turned toward him. But when we look at how vastly different God standards are in ours. And the fact that every single thing that we do that contradicts Torah opens the door for the enemy to cause trouble in our lives. It's a legal system that we operate in. And God, by law, his own law, must allow the enemy to give us the tsuris, the trouble, when we don't do something right. And we see that happening with Jacob. Jacob did end up fulfilling the prophecy. He did end up, bringing about a nation. And I certainly wouldn't have done it the way he did. And I don't think anybody would have chosen the way that he did it. I mean, he got kind of bamboozled into having 4 wives and 13 kids and a partridge in a pear tree and all that kind of stuff. But it's just every single thing that we do. And that's why it says that even every word that we say is going to be judged. And I think that, as we've spoken about 100 million times on this network, that there's too much focus on grace in the church today, and we don't realize what we're sowing until we start reaping it. And Jacob saw that. I mean, he reaped a lot. David, a man after God's own heart, and he is the epitome. I mean, even in Ezekiel, it says that David, my servant, is going to be leading the people in the millennial kingdom. Whether that's David resurrected or it's a descendant of his, we're not entirely sure. But man, oh man, he made a catastrophe of certain things in his life. And so it just shows us that it is so important for us not to just kind of slough off certain things and just say that's not important. To God, everything is important.
Very good. Very well said.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'm going to let that be the last word. And I want us to jump into the current news event that's going on. And we know all the different things that have been taking place with the killing of the Iraqi or the Iranian general who was actually in Iraq stirring things up against the United States. And now we have a number of things that have taken place since then. And that's what brings us to this news article today. And this is the article is by Michael Snyder. It was over at newswars.com. And it is, why is Iran flying a blood red flag over a famous mosque that is directly associated with the Mahdi? And so here's the basics. For the first time ever, a blood red flag is being flown over the famous Jamkaran Mosque in the Iranian holy city of Qom or however you might say that. If you have not seen it yet, you can watch it. Okay, there anyway. There's actually a picture at newswars.com if you want to take a look at it. The hoisting of this flag was broadcast on Iranian state television, and it was obviously intended to send a message to Shiites all over the globe. And so, what is the message? That's what I wanted to talk about today. Well, it says here, we are just being told, according to the Shiite tradition, red flag represents both blood spilled unjustly and a call for revenge. But let's go to a little bit deeper here. Red flags in the Shiite tradition symbolize both blood spilt unjustly and serve as a call to vengeance to the person who is slain. It is the first time in history that the red flag has been hoisted on top of the Jamkaran Mosque in the Iranian city, and comes after warnings of harsh retaliation against the U.S. Red flags have also been spotted flying at anti-U.S. demonstrations in Tehran over the past few days. Clearly, the Iranians want blood. They will never, ever forgive us for the killing of Qasem Soleimani, and their faith requires that he be avenged. There is also a message inscribed on the red blood flag that is now flying above the Jamkaran Mosque. And apparently it is the reference to the death of the grandson of Muhammad. The flag inscribed with the words, "Those who want to avenge the blood of Hussein," was hoisted above the mosque shrine for what local reports claim was the first time in history, according to the Daily Mail. The grandson of Muhammad Hussein, of Muhammad, Hussein was decapitated in AD 680 during the Second Islamic Civil War, when Muslims were fighting over who was the proper successor to their prophet. And the act was met with bloody retaliation from Muslims who considered Hussein's death unjust and sought to avenge him. Obviously, the Iranians are viewing this as something much bigger than simply extracting sufficient revenge for the death of a deeply loved national leader. Rather, they seem to be using this moment as a call to wage jihad against all the enemies of Shia Islam. As mentioned before, this flag was raised over the particular mosque in is a very big deal. The Jamaican Mosque is considered to be one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam, and it is also associated with the future reappearance of the Mahdi. In fact, as the flag was being hoisted, there was a direct reference to the Mahdi. As the flag was raised in Qom, the mosque speakers called, "O Allah, hasten your custodian reappearance," a reference to the end time reappearance of the Mahdi. And in Iran today, most of the national leaders believe that the 12th Imam, which is Muhammad al-Mahdi, was born in Iraq in 869 and never died. Just before Judgment Day, the Mahdi is supposed to reappear along with Jesus during a time of war and chaos to bring peace to the world and establish Islam as the ruling faith across the globe. So it's also commonly believed that the Mahdi is coming very soon, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we got to understand that this is the mindset of these radical Shiites. They want to die as martyrs, therefore they'll be rewarded in the afterlife. And war with America and the loss of their life really is just means they want to see. They're willing to lay down everything in order to avenge this general. They're willing to lay down everything for the reappearance of the Mahdi. Now, understand again that the Mahdi was born. They just believe he never died, and he is just going to appear. Interesting parallels that they try to bring in that you might see within biblical faith. But yeah, thank you, Mark, for pulling that up. There's the flag over that deal. So I want to throw it out there and say, we've got all of these things are going on. Was it the right thing for President Trump to order the killing of this general who was actually, in fact, seen in the green zone at the big protests in front of the U.S. Embassy the other day? And as he was leaving and he was heading towards the airport, they did a drone strike. So they killed him, took out others. And so it stirred up a lot of things. Some people are calling in the media saying this is the verge of World War III because of how this thing can escalate. I want to hear what y'all's thoughts. Are we seeing something that is going to escalate? Are the Iranians going to take it further? Are they going to activate sleeper cells in America? Is this a big deal? Is this something we were looking at as a biblical event? What do y'all think? I'm going to put it on the table. And Daryl, I want to bring it to you first. What are your thoughts?
This guy should have been taken out decades ago. He is the chief terror orchestrator in the world, probably. And Trump warned Iran many times. When they took down, there was back in April, I think it was, when Iran shot down an unmanned drone, and Bolton and some of the other war hawks were banging the drum that we need to go blow Iran to smithereens because they shot down our paper airplane or something like that. And then Trump pulled back at the last minute because he says it was going to cost 150 lives and it's not worth it for an unmanned drone. But he did say over and over, if there are U.S. lives lost, then Iran will pay a steep price. And when you compare that to what Obama did, which was, give Iran $150 billion so they could continue their nuclear weapons program. The Illuminati under Pike orchestrated or planned out the 3 world wars. 1 and 2 happened exactly the way that they were supposed to. And World War III is supposed to be Israel and Islam. And when we see the prophecy of Gog and Magog, the war of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39, we know that Russia is going to align with some of Israel's enemies, and they're going to try to invade, and then God is going to supernaturally just wipe out that army. And Putin is, he's beating his chest right now. He's getting very bold, and something is going to trigger him going in there. We thought it might have been, Israel rattling sabers with Syria or something like that. We don't know what it's going to be. But in all of this, God is orchestrating events to bring about the war of Gog and Magog, a supernatural deliverance of Israel, and then the rise of the Antichrist. But part of what's happening, if you look at Australia right now too, Australia is burning. And the reason why Australia is burning is because it's being judged. There's so much immorality. I had someone tell me last night there's actually been a lot of false prophecies coming out of Australia too. So should this guy have been killed? Yeah, he should have been. He has been planning terror attacks. It's like, the others that they've taken out. I remember when they invaded Iraq after 9/11, and you had the guy whose name was Zarqawi, and he was beheading people. It was kind of the first instance of beheading on the internet. And there is no appeasing these people. So if they say that, it's going to cause Iran to for more vengeance, well, Islam's whole purpose is world domination anyway, and whether they do it slowly or quickly, it doesn't matter. They're still after complete domination of the world. And Iran is looking to take over the Middle East. They are at constant war with the Sunni Muslims, which are in Iraq. Most actually of the Middle East is Sunni Muslim. The Sunnis and the Shiites hate each other. And if it wasn't for the fact that they had Christianity and Judaism to fight, they'd be killing each other all day long. I don't think there's anything else you could do. Trump drew a line in the sand, said if there's U.S. lives lost, there's going to be retribution. This guy is a parasite. He was an evil man. He has planned over decades the deaths of literally thousands of people. And he did what Trump told him not to do, and Trump said, okay. And the one thing that Trump has done since he came to office is that when he promises he's going to do something, he does it. The problem is that we've had a deep state that has been planning the destruction of the U.S. for decades now, starting off with, David Rockefeller back in the 60s. And and Obama carried that plan out meticulously for, Obama was the setup pitcher. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the closer, and she was supposed to close down the U.S. God had mercy on the U.S., brought in Trump instead. And he's trying to do the best that he can to prevent this from happening, but he's not getting a whole lot of support. So are we going to face terror attacks? Probably. But this is what they do. This is what they've always done. This is what they will always do. So either we try to pretend it doesn't exist and we appease like Neville Chamberlain did. And 6 months before the invasion of Poland, came home and said to everybody, there's peace in our time, quickly leading up to 50 million people dying in World War II. Or we take a stand and we say, you know what, the U.S. still has the greatest military in the world. We better start using it before it's too late.
All right. Yeah, no, really good thoughts there. In fact, there's so much that I'm looking at is that I think Iran, for one of the countries, has had such they've been so vocal about coming against the United States and Israel is because they've looked at Western leadership as weak. And you mentioned this, Daryl, is that we really are a divided country. We've got a country that is doing everything it can to weaken the presidency of the United States. We've got so many divisions going on between races and cultures and economic classes and education.
Done on purpose.
All of it done on purpose. And you're right about that. I mean, it started all the way back with the Clintons. And even as you said, with the Rockefellers going all the way back to the 60s, it's all been a setup to bring to a culmination to today. And when they look at us as weak, they think they can do whatever they can. In fact, they thought that even the demonstrations there at the embassy in Baghdad was because they didn't think we were going to do anything. And President Trump hasn't done anything because U.S. presidents have typically been weak when it comes to attacks on American soil, other than during the time of Clinton when he threw a couple rockets over into Kenya and Nairobi and blew up some pharmaceutical plants or something like that during the time of the Monica Lewinsky ordeal, kind of take the news off of himself. But other than that, I mean, that really wasn't a show of strength. President Trump is actually giving a show of strength and to show that American means business don't do anything, but it takes us, don't do anything to us or it will escalate. We're going to take it further. And, which leads us to the next point is I'm going to bring Mark back in. Mark, what do you think? Is this going to be an escalation to all-out war which is brought to Israel, as Daryl was talking about, the Gog-Magog war? How serious is this? You're muted, Mark. Oh, there you go.
Well, what the rabbi said, I mean, that was incredible, Daryl. It was really good. And John, you're always so versed on all this stuff, which I am not. And in answer to your question, no, I don't believe so. I believe we have a lot of other things going on. This might be at the top of the heap as one of the main things, but I think we still have time. I think Armageddon's in the future. I don't think we're that close to it. But I am no scholar on these matters at all. I don't watch them nearly as close as you guys do. So I don't know. Maybe I am one of those that it's one of those things where I have seen too many times in the past 20 years, people predicting that it's going to happen now, get ready. This is time. Maybe I'm one of those type of people, but if I am, I think it's one of those things where I'll wait and listen to you guys tell me, okay, it's time, it's going to happen, and then I'll go with it.
All right. Yeah. You know, I think we got a lot to be looking at because we have a lot of things that are coming together, in my opinion, of the perfect storm. We have these elements within the Middle East that they've been brewing for a long time. We've seen Iran in Syria. We've seen Israel attacking Iranian locations within Syria. We've seen the connection between Hezbollah in Iran and Hamas in Iran. We see all of these elements there, but then we've got the division within the United States. We've got the things in Virginia with the gun grab that the governor is proposing to do. We have that type of element going on even within Colorado and within California, where different states are out and out against the direction that this president wants to go. Is divisions within the states. We have earthquakes going in different parts of the world. There's a major earthquake that just took place off the coast of Puerto Rico over the weekend. that they're saying that it could, an eruption there, where we have a big magma dome, I guess that is rising in the off the coast of Puerto Rico, where the earthquake is taking place. And then when they say it is so big and so large, it could create a tsunami that could affect the East Coast and the Gulf Coast of the United States. They're talking about things going on in the Cascadia range where earthquakes, I mean, elements everywhere going on, things happening in the solar system. We have things that could bring down our communications and bring down the economy. Anything could happen. Anything could be triggered with one. And maybe is the taking out of this general part of the trigger, or is it just part of the process? Or as you're saying, Mark, how do we have more to go? Are things going to blow up by Passover, or do we still have time on the clock to where we can keep getting this word out? I mean, those are some things that I think about. These are some things that I go through my brain, and not that I stay up at night thinking about them. Not at this point in time. But
I disagree with that.
It does concern me, all these different things, because we need to be awake and we need to be aware. But it's very interesting the time that we're living in, and how many people are not paying attention. As Tammy says, the masses are asleep. It says PTB. I'm not sure what that means. The masses asleep, but many of the masses are wide awake and spreading the news. So yeah, there is an awakening that's going on, and yet there's still
powers that be.
The powers that be. There we go. Thank you, Sandy. So anyway, elements that I want us to keep an eye on and pay attention to. This could be a big deal, and that's why I wanted to bring it on as a subject to talk about today.
Potentially could be a big deal.
Yeah, it potentially could be. So keep your eyes wide open. So
I know there's a lot of believers who don't want to delve into this. They think it's all negative and whatnot. But if we're not going to be watchmen, if we're not going to be seeing what's going on out there, and if we're only going to focus on the spiritual, if we're only going to focus on the good things of God, God calls us to be ready in season and out of season.
That's right.
And if we don't have any idea of what's going on, how can we minister to our congregations and talk to them about, Jesus loves me. Yes, I know, for the Bible tells me so, when all hell is breaking loose in their lives. And if, there are terrorist attacks that start erupting in the United States, Canada can't be far behind. We had 2 of them in Toronto back in the summer of 18 with the van attack, and then the shooting on the Danforth. That's a warning shot, and it's escalating. And as Trudeau continues to invite Islam into the country and to slaughter babies both here and around the world, and to bring about every abomination that's offensive to God, the judgment has to come. And if we're not warning our people that you better put on your big boy pants and start getting prepared, because things are going to get difficult. People's faith is going to fall away. Many will fall away. And I keep coming back to this verse over and over and over again in Matthew 24. Yeshua says many will fall away because their faith is only based on what Joel Osteen is telling him, that God loves you so much he wants your best life now. No, he doesn't. Your best life is to come, because if this is your best life now, you ain't saved. My best life is in heaven. My best life is in eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, nor is the heart discerned the things that are in store for those who love God. Yeshua said in John 16:33 that I tell you these things because you will face many tribulations in the world. But fear not, I have overcome not the tribulations, he has overcome the world. And we got to stop selling people a bill of goods that as soon as you come to Yeshua, all of your problems get solved. My life became much more difficult once I got into ministry, because now I had a target on my back.
Yeah, that's an understatement there. That's really true. But isn't that? But I like how you capsulized that whole thing, because honestly, we are supposed to talk about the times that we're living in, and there's a lot of people that just don't want to hear it.
And prepare.
Yeah, and
whether it's for us or other generations, it's just
it is very important that we pay attention to what's going on and know what's happening out there. So, and I just think about an article we talked about in the past where the millennials are leaving religion and not coming back. And we talked about that. So yeah, there's your word, Mark, millennials. So, but think about that is that we need to somehow be able to communicate this message to the younger generations that have heard, a lot of them have heard, Jesus is coming back. You need to repent. The rapture is right around the corner and whatever, 88 reasons that he's coming back in 1988 and all these different things have been big disappointments for a lot of different people. And they're like, we're done with religion. We're done with all this. We have to somehow renew this type of message because there is a whole younger generation that is somehow we've been disconnected with. And honestly, I think it's going to take revival. It's going to take an awakening that needs to come through it needs to sweep through Canada, it needs to sweep through the United States, around the world. So anyway, well, hey, that's all I wanted to talk about that today. Let's jump into the next segment, and that is the Brit Hadashah. Mark, you've got that for us today.
I do. The Brit Hadashah portion is John 13:1 through 19. I don't know why they didn't take it over to 20. It all works in there. As a matter of fact, 20 is one of the better ones. This whole discourse is literally full of different things that we're all very familiar with. But the one that stood out to me, the one verse that stood out to me when I was looking over it, you had asked me to speak on this, and I was looking over it and kind of, okay, God, what stands out from all of this? Once again, a lot of things stand out. It's verse 3, and reading from the Complete Jewish Bible, because quite honestly, I looked at it in other versions, and this is one of the most chopped up sections that I've ever read. It's so chopped up. You almost want I know a lot of people put down David Stern for his version because it's a different way of writing it up, but sometimes it's nicer to have it out like that. Verse number 3, Yeshua was aware that the Father had put everything in his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. I think the thing that stands out in this whole thing, because the rest of this part of the portion, verses 1 through 20, I'm going to say 20, really goes along a lot with what y'all have been talking about with, different wars and rumors of wars that are happening and that type of thing. But it really kind of boils down to this verse to me, because Yeshua was aware of the power of God that was in him. And it's, the Father had put everything. It's such a distraction. I've got something going on. I'm sorry. I apologize. He was aware of that. And without us being aware of what God has put in us and what God is working in us and applying in our lives so that we can work this, without being aware of that. I mean, and I think a lot of people would ask the question, well, I'm saved. I'm aware that I'm saved, and I'm aware that God is in me and that I have these abilities to do these things, and I can do all things through the Messiah who strengthens me. Well, yeah, those are real, and they're right, and they're nice, but am I aware of these things that God has put in me so that I can use that to be aware of the world around me and the needs of the world around me, and how I can use that. I mean, if Yeshua was aware that the Father had put everything in his power, and then it says, so he arose from the table and washed their feet. It doesn't take power to wash somebody's feet, but what came out of that and what they understood from that and what we can understand from that is vital to our lives and vital to the walk that we need to have. But without having, I mean, you can go wash somebody's feet. I could turn to Daryl and wash his feet just for washing his feet. Okay, now they're clean. But if I can wash his feet and you can learn the humbleness of that, and I can learn the humbleness of that, and I can minister to the person, and they can now be aware of the power of God that's in them, how much more is that vital revelation in our lives, and then we can go out and use the power of the God that's in us. That's the way I would look at that. I'm done. Oh, everybody is muted because everybody's muted. Okay, there you go. Oh, now you mute
on that. And but I want to hear from Daryl. What are your thoughts on this part of the Brit Hadashah?
Yeah, I agree with Mark. If we're going to do things, the biggest problem that the Pharisees had, and the biggest problem with rabbinic Judaism, is that it's all external. And you can do, I mean, Paul references this in 1 Corinthians 13 when he talks about what love is. And he says that, you know, I can give my body to be a burnt offering. And if it's not done with true love in our heart, then I've accomplished nothing. I can say all the things I want, and I can just become a clanging gong. So much of what people have do today is based on the external. That was what Torah was. It was trying to work righteousness from the outside in. And that's why it never worked. And, you know, obviously God understood this. The new covenant is working righteousness from the inside out by God inscribing the Torah on our hearts, but he has to change our heart too, because if our hearts are in unbelief and we have hearts of stone, then we've simply taken the 2 tablets that Moses had to destroy because the Israelites couldn't even wait till he got back down to give it to them. And I always laugh too, because when I look at the end of Joshua chapter 1, when Joshua is now commissioned and God is saying, you know, don't fear. And then all of Israel surrounds Joshua and they say to him, just like everything that Moses told us to do that we did, so the same thing is with you. I'm thinking, did they just blot out 40 years of history? Like, what happened there?
Really?
Yeah.
There's a bit of revisionist history. There must have been some Democrats or something like that in the Israeli camp, because they just whitewashed 40 years of rebellion. So we, you know, the power that is in us is only done through the right motives. You can do all the wonderful things. You know, we always look at that the passage when the widow with 2 mites. And we always look to her as being an example of sacrificial giving. And we think that God was pleased with her. The very next chapter in the book of Mark, after watching what she did, now he compares what she did versus what the other people did, and that she gave of all she had. But Yeshua's whole purpose in that wasn't to say that this is the model by which I want. What he was saying is that she had the right heart, but because the whole system is corrupt, I'm taking it out. Because he talks about the destruction of the temple in the very next chapter. Why? Because the bondage that had been enforced upon the people with the having to give to the temple system and everything else, which was completely corrupt by that time, Yeshua says, I'm taking it out. Everything that we do needs to be from the heart. And even if we don't do it the right way, too many, what I have found, especially in the last little while, is that when Gentiles start to come into the Messianic lifestyle and they start to embrace Torah, they get all thrown out of whack because they don't know how to apply it with balance. They get imbalanced because they don't understand the spiritual aspect of Torah. They come from all grace. They come from a antinomian perspective. They come into Torah and realize, wait a minute, there are actually expectations of me. And then they go into legalism. And then they start telling everybody else that they're doing it wrong. We had a couple that was down here in the Niagara Falls area that were so excited about us coming down. And the wife, and it's how we met her actually, was on a Facebook Torah group. And she had asked for prayer for a friend of hers who's not a believer, who had an abortion. And the community eviscerated her, telling her, that she shouldn't and how dare she and everything else. She pulled back. She walked away from this. And now, even after meeting her husband, having a couple of good conversations with him, it looks like he's pulled the ripcord and jumped out of the plane. Unless it's done through love, unless it's done through the right motivation, you can take all of your obedience and you can chuck it out the window, and you might as well go talk to that piece of rock over there and see if it's going to do something for you, because God's not interested.
Yeah. Interesting. Very good. And that breaks my heart when I hear that. And I know about those Torah groups because I monitor those at times, but I get so frustrated because they parse words. They start. Yeah. It's like, I don't even comment because they're ready just to pick apart anything that one might say. And, which is a sad commentary. And that's how the non-Messianic Hebrews, people out there see us. They see us that way. And there's a big danger
because it's not just those that are coming into the covenant, understanding it, that sit there with the rule of law. Because as you said, as we say, the Torah is spirit. I see the majority of those that follow Torah follow in legalism and law, and they forget that Torah is a spiritual concept. I don't think it is the new people alone that are coming in, because so many are exiting. People are exiting because they haven't found the spirit in the way we act, in the way we walk. Our congregations, and you know this, Daryl, because I believe we're the same in the way we lead our congregation, is that it's filled with the Spirit, it's filled with life, it's filled with truth, it's filled with all of it. There's balance. So,
well, and this is Romans chapter 7. Paul is talking about the struggle between law and grace, and we never get it right. We're always going to kind of tip off from one way to the other. And until we are, until we're with him and we're perfect and we're like him, we're being conformed to his image right now. And, we've all made so many mistakes. I mean, people will often say to me, oh, it's amazing how you frame that or how you position that. And it was just like, I had a lot of years of experiencing the wrong way to do that in order to get to the right way to do that. Yeah. I've been invited not to come back to a lot of churches because of how I have framed certain things. And even just very recently, I had a conversation with someone who got all offended about how I said something. It wasn't wrong in what I said, but this guy was extremely wounded from stuff that's happened over his life. And he even said that, oh, he must hate me. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how on earth did he come to that? I just simply asked him a question about why he was doing something, but something in my tone, because of, well, that's kind of who I am and the way I do things, but he got offended. And so I had to send him a text and I said, I understand you were offended. And I said, let's get together and talk about it and everything else. And it's just like, oh my gosh, my first instinct is like, would you please just pull the thumb out of your mouth? But I can't do that because then you end up turning off people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's so true.
Let me jump in real quick. And we've gotten way off from the beginning of this, but to respond to what Daryl was just saying, I really want to add this in. Yesterday, I went back to church after not being there for the whole month of December because of all the Christmas trees in the church. And I was greeted by massive amounts of people that noticed that I was gone for a month. Some people even saying, we missed you so much. Are you sure it was only a month? And everybody was real happy, and only one person actually asked me why I wasn't there for the past month. And I hem-hawed around it, and I said, I really want to tell you, but I don't want to offend you. And they're going, well, you're not going to offend me. And I said, well, it's just like so many other things. I really have to give you a half-hour teaching before I can explain to you, or I can answer the question that you just asked me. In other words, I can't just tell you, but I could, because I don't want to offend them. But I could just tell them, the whole idea about paganity and Christmas and your Christmas trees. I'm not going to go into this building when there's 10 Christmas trees all over the place, and 5 of them are up on the stage and that type of thing, and eventually I did. I had to get around to give her the real short version of the half-hour teaching about it all. And, she was okay, but you could tell it was like, okay.
Yeah. Right.
That's what, again, when the verse that I read and what I was going off of here, Yeshua was aware. He's aware of the power that God gave him, but I think within that is being aware of how to handle the power that God gives you, and to be able to react to what Daryl was confronted with, what I was confronted with people. But I put myself in those situations, but I know how. I'm sure I know how to handle it, and I've made myself available. So anyway,
right, yeah, good deal. Well, as you're saying, that verse is really significant, because if you really look at it, why was he aware? The whole point, the whole focus of his ministry, the whole focus of all history was coming down to the very point that would be taking place during the next few days of his life, the next few hours of his life, actually, where he was going to suffer and endure the cross. He was going to endure the tree. He was going to be buried. He was going to die. He was going to be buried, and he was going to be resurrected. Everything, the whole focus of it, he was aware of all these different things, and they're all funneled into this one point, and it was in his hands to say yes or no to the Father. Say, I'm going to do this or not. And what a powerful pivoting point. And that's a really good passage to bring out from this week's Brit Hadashah. Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Yeah. So, well, good deal. Well, that's going to bring us to a close to this week's edition of Let Us Reason Together. And I want to thank Rabbi Daryl Weinberg up there in Canada, and Cram from the great state of North Carolina, and Sandi for joining me today on this show. It's a good show, good discussion, good thoughts. And if y'all are out there, give us a thumbs up if you like what you hear, and share it on your social media. Let people know what's going on here at Messianic Lamb Network. And we want to continue with great programming. We want to hear from you. So let us know what you think. Well, with that said, and with all that going on, I want to say shalom to everyone, and we'll sign off.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.